So, I have a Trello board that I maintain uh, with a list of content ideas, and I got people to upvote on the ideas that they think are worth following up on. And one of the most upvoted ideas is Twitter as a coffee shop for friendly nerds, or as a coffee shop of friendly nerds. And so I think what that prompt is suggesting to people is that I have a pretty unique perspective on how to use Twitter, and I enjoy my use of Twitter. And it's always kind of funny to me to see that lots of people think of Twitter as something frustrating, painful, dumpster fire. And so I thought it might be useful to articulate my thoughts on how I use Twitter and why it's so good for me. So some backstory. As a child, I loved libraries and books, and it just felt like all of these people are sharing their thoughts and ideas with me for free. Authors writing books, and it's just, I feel like fundamentally a library has this vibe of intellectual stimulation, and every book is an act of optimism. It's even if it's a cynical book that's has presents a cynical point of view, it's optimistic to believe that those ideas are worth writing down and worth sharing with other people. And I think I have been radicalized from a very young age to just believe that ideas are worth stating and sharing with other people. And there's this kind of philosophy, I guess, of idea sharing that I just take for granted, and I kind of assume that everyone else would feel the same way. I used to think that, oh, if I can just get everybody to go to the library and have that experience, then everyone will be moved the same way that I was and feel compelled the same way that I was to want to participate. I sometimes describe libraries as lighthouses of human consciousness. Alas, not everyone feels that way, but that's so the optimism hit me deeply already. So we don't even if we can't get everybody to enjoy libraries the way I do. I think there's a lot of benefit to be had from finding other people who feel similarly and connecting them with one another, because a lot of people are in isolation. A lot of people are separate from each other, and we can reach out into the darkness and find each other. I know it sounds kind of dramatic, but it's true, and it's improved my quality of life dramatically just to approach my online presence with this kind of collaborative attitude. So when I discovered the internet, I was about maybe 7 years old. I was like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to participate in this hypertext library of knowledge, information sharing, right? I used to think that, oh, I would to become a writer, to participate in the library, the human library, I would have to find a publisher. I would have to go through that elaborate process of gatekeeping to be a writer. And now with the internet, like, you can just publish anything you want for effectively free, and you can talk to effectively anybody. And the amazing thing about Twitter in particular, I find, and I guess this might be true for YouTube as well, but it struck me with Twitter especially, is that you can really reach out to anybody else in the world who also has a Twitter account. Like, if you know the handle, you can just add them. And it took me a while. So I've had a Twitter account for pretty long. I signed up for Twitter, I think, around 2007 or 2008. And just, around the same time, a little bit later than when I signed up for Facebook, I guess. And it's just, oh, there's an app, you should sign up for it, try it out, see what it's like. Oh, post about what you're doing, and you don't really have a lot of followers. And so some people reply to your tweets some people respond to your replies of their tweets. But at the time, I felt like, I tried it here and there, now and then, but it didn't really stick for me at the time. But I came back to it later on. I would be periodically tweeting from time to time when I feel like I want to say something, and if it's tweet length, then tweet it, and just maybe a friend will see it, right? But I think around 2010, 11, 12, I started tweeting more and more. and it's kind of become its own thing. Around 2014, 2015, I found a bunch of friends and online on Twitter, and in 2015, 2016. So I was also tweeting for work. So I used to work at a local startup, a tech company that sells software, and I used to manage the company's Twitter account. And so while doing that, I would have conversations with lots of people all over the world. And I guess that kind of normalized for me the feeling of talking with strangers online, which I mean I was already doing on forums and stuff, but it normalized using Twitter that way for me. And yeah, so I guess I brought some of that back to my personal account in a sense. And yeah, so in the past couple of years or so, I now have 17,000 Twitter followers, which is, depending on your point of view, it's either a lot or, you know, it's not mega celebrity, but it's enough that I have friends from major cities all over the world, and I can get replies to almost anything I say almost immediately at any time of the day, which is amazing, right? I feel like to some degree I've almost solved loneliness for myself, like my specific class of loneliness, of feeling like I got nobody to talk to. I mean, I've always had friends, right, that you could text, but you don't want. I used to not want to impose on them, right? And there's something about Twitter that's very. Any tweet kind of, I think, invites engagement, and that I think is one of the great features slash culture of Twitter. I mean, it has its dark side, right? Like people find that Twitter also is home to a lot of abuse and a lot of disagreeableness, right? And so I want to talk for a bit about kind of my Twitter strategy and how you can also benefit from it. So I've always kind of thought of it as find your people, you know. So whatever it is that you care about, there are surely other people in the world who care about it, even if it's 0.001% of the world population, right? That's millions of people. And, you know, if some subset of them are on Twitter, then you can find those people. And if their accounts are public, you can add them. And if you add those people who are in public and you say things that they like, and then they like you, and then you can become friends, right? I mean, isn't it? To me, this is super obvious. So I'm always surprised when people seem surprised by this. But I guess it's just something about the context that I grew up in or participated in. But yeah, so you can really, you know, even now, even with 17,000 followers, I find myself thinking there are surely hundreds of wonderful people that are on Twitter that I don't know about, that I could be friends with, who I'm not friends with yet, and which is an exciting prospect for me. So how do you do it? How do you find your people, right? So I would say, well, there are few ways you can approach starting, but I would say, you know, you got to figure out who your people are. You got to figure out kind of what your niche is, and you don't need, you know, I tell people to think about their niche, but I myself was kind of averse to being specific about my niche. I guess now people will describe me as, oh, the curious, nerdy, friendly guy who's doing a lot of threads about trivia and occasionally like social commentary and stuff like that, which is a pretty broad, pretty big tent. And I have a couple of alts, meaning other accounts that I don't have my name on it, that I just experiment with. And I've one of my alts in particular, I didn't tell anybody about it, and nobody in my personal life or nobody on my main knows what my alt is. And I have like a couple of thousand friends, you know, Twitter friends there. And I grew that very deliberately and very intentionally without saying who I am. And that actually gave me a feeling of lightness, like you know, a sense of I can do this, I can make friends around the world without people knowing who I am, like just solely based on the merit of my utterances, right? And yeah, and also this worked so well for me because I had a very specific niche in mind. I'm not going to say what it is, because if I do, you can figure it out. And I kind of enjoy the anonymity of people not knowing who I am. on that front, right? So, but the secret to that, right, and which also works on my main, and I've also done some consulting for other people who want to get in on this game, right? And the secret to that is finding a kind of crossroads, I would say. So a crossroads, cities are grow out of crossroads, right? Which is two different roads that intersect, and so you can find two separate interests that you have. That it could be motorcycles and pizza, right? Or yoga and archaeology. I don't know, just two different interests that you have, and the fun thing is that now you have a reason to seek out people who are interested in one of those two things, and they will be pretty curious to understand how kind of what are the similarities and differences between your two separate interests, and yeah, so you can follow. So if let's say you're doing motorcycles and pizza, right? You can search Twitter to find people who are talking about either motorcycles or pizza. You can follow those people, and you can reply to their tweets. And if they like your replies, you can make friends, and then you build off from there. So the thing that I'm kind of skimming over is okay. So you find people that you want to follow, and I suggest following people who are likely to reply, because it's pretty frustrating to follow kind of a huge accounts, whether it's corporate accounts or brands or just very famous people. If you follow those people, your replies are unlikely to be seen or be responded to, and I personally find that to be kind of a wasteful experience. It's like if I'm replying to a celebrity and they don't reply back to me, it's like, what am I doing? It's a parasocial relationship, right? Like I'm hallucinating my interaction with them. Whereas if you find people who have under 2,000 accounts, well, I have 17k, and if you follow me and you reply to one of my tweets, I will probably reply back. But I'm a little bit weird. I'm kind of a little bit obsessive about making friends, so I'm always replying to people, and even then this will not be sustainable past a certain point. I think once I have, I don't know, 50k, 100k followers, it'll probably no longer be feasible to reply to every single reply. But yeah, you can, I have lists of friends who are great people, who are very nourishing, positive, supportive, and you can follow them, and if you play nice, they'll play nice back. Right. So okay, the thing I haven't spoken about yet is just what good reply game looks like, and I would say that the general attitude of most people. So I don't know if it's true for most people, but the loudest people on the internet are the most disagreeable ones. So right, people who have issues with what other people are saying, people who complain about what other people are saying, people who when you say X, they say what about Y, right? And disagreeable people have their place, and they perform a fairly important role, I guess. But it's very difficult to make friends when you're being uncharitably disagreeable with people that you don't even know. And so the kind of hack or the trick, right? The thing is to realize that in a world where people are so defensive and so used to dealing with disagreeable people, the trick to making friends is to be a supportive, nourishing presence, right? In improv, they say that you should say yes and, right? So you affirm what the other person is saying. Even if you're disagreeing with someone, it's very helpful to find something in what they're saying that you can agree with, so that they don't perceive you as an opponent, and even an opponent is kind of a loaded thing, but so that they don't see you as someone who's kind of going after them, but someone who's kind of being a bit playful and wanting to play with ideas in a way that benefits them. And that is the thing, and I used to be a more disagreeable person when I was younger. I used to, and if you look Benjamin Franklin up, he describes going through the same journey. Like when you're younger and you're smart, it's very easy to go after people for making mistakes and saying things imperfectly, and pointing out, well, actually what you just said here is wrong technically, because it's easy to do that. It's easy to point out the failures and mistakes in other people's thinking, writing, whatever. And because there's so much of that all the time, nobody really appreciates it. Nobody really requires it. There's always more of it. It's free. It's abundant. What's precious is support and encouragement. And I'm not saying that you should be blindly, insincerely encouraging and supportive in ways that are not honest. I'm saying you should find honest ways to be supportive. And I'll link my thread about reply game in the comments. But yeah, so just this idea of go online, figure out the topics that you care about, make that clear in your bio so that people who see your bio can make the decision to follow you back. Tweet about those things. So when someone's scrolling through your feed, they should see tweets that they will like to interact with. And you can even encourage this in your bio itself. You can describe yourself as friendly. You can say, comments welcome. Like all these things, they seem slightly cliche, but I do find and that it makes a difference. And when I've been helping other people kind of troubleshoot their bios to figure out how to get more followers, they do find that when they describe themselves as friendly, when they say talk to me about A, B, and C, right? When you kind of give people permission to talk to you, they will. You know what? And like one of the reasons I wear rings, even, right, or jewelry, and sometimes I paint my nails, sometimes I wear necklaces. I mean, I do it because I enjoy how it looks, and it's also fun to give people something they can point to and ask you about, and then that kind of starts conversations. So you can do that. What else? Follow the right people. Practice good reply game. And so I'm not saying be so there's this meme, right, of the reply guy, and you could and there's this sense of I got a reply guy, and what does that mean? That means it's usually gendered. It's usually women who have men in their mentions who are repeatedly kind of it's just talking about replies in general, and it could be it doesn't specify what kind of replies the replies are, but just the sense of this, like, my mentions pest. One of my friends once said, I have a mentions pest. And so you don't want to be a pest. So you don't want to be replying to every single tweet of someone else unless you're super close friends and you know that they're into it. If you're trying to get on someone's radar and potentially become friends but they don't know you yet, I think a fairly decent reply ratio is like, you shouldn't be replying every single day. Maybe like every other day or every third day maybe, and maybe like 1 in 7 tweets or something. Not necessarily you scroll through their feed and reply to every 7th tweet, but so I have acquaintances that I like, and I could potentially reply to every single one of their tweets on my time that appears on my timeline. But I choose not to, because I don't want them to feel like I'm coming on too strongly to them, because then they might have to worry that, is this guy weird? Is this guy obsessive? At this point, I've been doing this for so long that I kind of have a brand, and people know what to expect from me, and people kind of, Visa is very prolific on Twitter, he tweets a lot. And I have people who follow me and then subsequently unfollow me because they find that I tweet too much. But because we have so many mutual friends, they're going to end up seeing my tweets anyway when their friends retweet me, which is fine. I'm not here to make people follow me or get a very high follower count. I'm here to make friends, right? And to be in people's minds in a good way, like, so that I'm building social capital, right? And I mean, that can sound a bit manipulative or Machiavellian or whatever you want to call it, but I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything yet. Right? I just want friends. I want a good time. I want a broad network. I want to be able to go anywhere in the world and be received warmly by people who care about me. And I think that's possible, and I think the way I'm doing it is a very nourishing and positive way to do it, and I think it's very easy to learn. I mean, okay, it seems easy to learn to me. I went through some trial and error trying to figure it out, and I made some mistakes along the way and stuff like that, but looking back, the path is actually simpler than anybody ever conveyed to me. So I'm trying to practice talking about it and conveying it to other people. And I will have more clarity on how easy or difficult this is to learn based on how many people try it out and give me feedback on what their experiences are like. But already I've seen, there's like a couple of hundred people who are kind of in my radar, in my sphere who didn't used to tweet much or didn't know how to tweet with other people, and they've kind of found each other, and there's this beautiful thing that's happening. Like, people are making friends with each other, and they're like connecting with each other, and there's just this very wholesome vibe that's growing. And I want to teach other people how to do it. And I mean, even if we don't get into the specifics, simply knowing that this is possible, and that, you know, if you're not on Twitter and you want to try Twitter, hit me up. I can introduce you to other people that you can talk with who will be nice to you and kind to you, and yeah, we can get this very cool, friendly, loose community of international nerds who are sharing their interests and being supportive to each other in the comments and nerding out about stuff and not being uncharitably disagreeable with each other. And, you know, in my little way, I feel like this is how I'm trying to make the world a better place. I do want to expand this in every direction in a lot of other ways, right? But I feel like at an atomic level, at the most base level, it's really just individuals treating each other with good faith and respect, and kind of inviting each other to be playful. And yeah, you don't need to comment on every single bit of current affairs, right? So I find that Twitter is not a great place for discussing politics. You can try, and but I generally don't recommend it unless you know what you're doing. It's a great place to you can at any point in time nerd out about anything that you're interested in. You know, you can nerd out about video games, you can nerd out about what's on the street, you can nerd out about what you saw, and just share observations. I think some people feel like they need permission to do that, so I give you permission. You can be a nerd online, right? And tweet me if you want to share something. You know, you can. Feel free to use me as an excuse. Feel free to tweet and at me and say, Visa asked me to share my nerdiest thoughts, and I will retweet it, and it'll be seen by my nerdy friends, and you can do this friendly nerd network together. And, you know, if you want to go big and grand about it, I do. You know, Margaret Mead has a quote which is like, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, is the only thing that ever has. Like, a loose network of nerds around the world, I feel if we all have friendships that tie us to each other, we become a lot more interdependent, and we learn to care more about other people in other parts of the world. So I'll give you an example. You know, like, I'm Singaporean, so I live in Southeast Asia, and I've never really had to care about the greater world outside of it. But now I have friends in South Africa, in Namibia, in Honduras, in India, and I find myself now concerned about things that are happening, you know, in those parts of the world, because they affect my friends. And I find that this makes me feel more in tune with the world. It makes me feel more in touch with reality. It makes me feel more connected. There is a slight con to it, which is that, you know, you get a bit more worried and anxious about certain things. But in general, I think being connected is superior to being lonely and isolated. And I was a pretty lonely and isolated child, and I want to help people be less lonely and isolated. And I want to help introduce people to friends. And I think it's devastating that loneliness is such an epidemic in the most connected age of our time. And you know, I don't trust the apps to solve it by themselves. It takes people to solve people problems, right? And we have to find each other and talk to each other and build relationships, which is what I'm doing. And I invite you to do the same.